Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. For those watching today or catching the replay, listening or watching the replay, I'm Maria Cookson. This is Cheryl Mills, and we're Halen House. And we want to welcome you to May's monthly healing educational talk. And for those that may not know who Halen House is and what we do, Halen House is a nonprofit in Central Oregon whose mission is healing the root cause and effects of trauma, creating health, resilience, and wholeness. We do this by providing tools, education, tools, resources, and support to the community to learn about trauma and the opportunities to heal, which are available through holistic complementary treatments and practitioners to build resilience and wholeness for a person. We know that from research and personal experiences, we all have trauma, and we usually get affected in, there's 6 main areas: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, nutritional, and social. So we want to bring these tools and education and let you know that there are plenty of opportunities and different types of modalities to either start your healing journey or a little bump up on the way if you already are on that journey. So I will pass it now to Cheryl Mills, who will tell us about our speaker this month.
Thanks, Maria. And I'd like to welcome you all to Rewilding to Your True Nature. Joy Belonga is a 3 principles coach and an Eden Energy Medicine Practitioner. She came across the work of Sydney Banks and 3 principles almost 20 years ago, and it changed her life. Before knowing about this understanding, she would describe herself as a spiritual seeker on a never-ending quest for something she felt was missing. I can identify with that. Looking outside of herself for the answers, she searched for wisdom in books, workshops, retreats, and techniques. Once she learned to look in this new direction, she knew she had found what she was seeking. Her innate health and wisdom were already within her. Over time, she felt more alive, confident, and experienced the freedom of mind, which led her to a new way of creative living and aliveness. She continues to be passionate about this understanding and loves to share it with others. Joy will be sharing her story and passion with us as she now helps guide people back to rewilding their true nature. And Joy will introduce us to this understanding and how her life changed dramatically because of her learning of the 3 principles. She will share how we are all divinely engineered and that we have way more to offer than what we've been led to believe. Once people learn to look in this direction, life seems to unfold with more ease and grace. Synchronicities, less stress, more joy, and a greater sense of aliveness for life. You won't want to miss this. So welcome, Joy.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, and really excited about this talk because I found that this is part of who I am, my passion to point others to their innate health and wisdom, and just share how it's impacted with me, for me. So we're way more powerful than we have been led to believe. And we've been born with spiritual gifts that you've heard, I'm sure, as spiritual teachings, as to look within. And I find that that has been true for me. And this understanding that came to be was revealed to Sydney Banks. And in the 70s, Sydney Banks was just an ordinary guy, 9th grade education, worked as a welder. And I think his wife, strong-armed him to some kind of a marriage retreat. And about halfway through the weekend, Sid was on a break with another participant who happened to be a psychologist and said to Sid, Sid, it doesn't look like you're getting much out of this. What's going on? And Sid said, well, yeah, I'm just really feeling insecure. And this fellow participant said, Sid, you're not insecure. You're just thinking you are. And so Sid heard this at like such a deep, deep level that he was very much impacted. I think he and his wife did leave early. They went back home, and he had a couple of epiphanies that same day or weekend with the whole white light experience. And once he came out of that experience, he turned around and said to his wife and his mother-in-law, he said, what I just seen is going to change the world of psychology and psychiatry forever. And that has been true. Sid discovered the principles, I believe, in psychology. And William James, back in the day, considered, the father of psychology, came up with, I think, some theories about psychology, but in his own admission said, I know there's principles and they have yet to be discovered. And so that's the monumental, if you will, understanding that came through Sydney Banks, which has been known as, I guess, at the same level as like Copernicus's discovery that the Earth wasn't the center of the solar system back in the 1500s. And this was huge back then, which changed everything. It changed philosophy, it changed astronomy, it even changed parts in the Bible, my understanding is, because we all thought the Earth was the center of the solar system. So what I'm drawing to is that this is huge. This is a paradigm shift. And the reason probably why you haven't heard about it is that Sid Banks just did not want to be seen as a guru or anybody other than who he is. And so, he wasn't ready to, have a zillion followers, but he ended up having a lot of people, including monks and spiritual guides and psychologists from all over the world, come to see him because of what he was sharing, something way different than what anybody has known previously. And so that's the level of understanding, and how one grows in this understanding is through insights. So I can talk to you today about the 3 principles, which originally it was called health realization, and then down the road it was called 3 principles based on mind, thought, and consciousness. And those are metaphors, and these are spiritual gifts that everyone has been born with, just no one has told us about it. So the idea is that we're all connected through this amazing energy, that we're not outside of nature, we're part of nature, human nature. And what Sid saw is how we've been designed. And so he saw, this, how we do life. And so it's helped so many people. Sid died in 2009. And I think in a way, from that time, it went global. And so there's all kinds of practitioners and conferences. So way, more information out there. And what I'm hoping for today is that you see maybe something that resonates with you, or you're curious about something. And I would love to have another time to talk with you to take this understanding a little deeper than what I can do today. So since this understanding was so pivotal in my life, I have some insights to share with you as to how that impacted my life. And so anyway, to contact me, I have a new website. It's called joyofwellbeing.org. That's a great way to connect with me, or you can send me an email at joyofwellbeing.org. So the invitation's there. I'm hoping that you hear something today. So part of my talk today is also to highlight how we've been divinely engineered. And we kind of forget about that because we go about into our day-to-day physical world. And I'm sure you've heard that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, but what it looks like everything is physical because the spiritual is invisible. So anyway, out of the zillion of possibilities, the universe chose each one of you to be born and to breathe life into you, and that each of us are unique. Like we're originals. I mean, there's not another you, right? And so to really realize the amazingness, I guess you would say, that's who we are. And so the same energy that connects us all is the same energy of universal love, unconditional love, and our true nature, which is part of what I'm talking about today, is that we are love, peace, and harmony. And when you look at young kids playing, and I have a couple of grandkids, age 2 and 4, you see how we come into this world. We're just full of love and spontaneity and laughter and giggles and anything, any upset that might happen, they're over it in, 30 seconds. And that's really who we are. But it gets covered up. So what's interesting is that I think that we're born with everything we need. We have this innate health and wisdom within us, and through our schooling and our culture and our conditioning, it gets learned out of us. So a lot of our culture and conditioning and schooling is not about discovering who we are, but it's all outside in and trying to figure out, how to do this world, and a lot of emphasis on the outside in. And so part of my journey was that I just thought if I studied enough, if I took enough, workshops, if I just, did all the other techniques out there, that I would understand how to do this life. And maybe, just maybe, I would be enlightened. And so that's where I was going, and took a lot of my time and energy until I found this understanding. And what I realized, I was looking all out there and for wisdom, and, because I didn't think I had it within me. And so once I understood this understanding, which we refer to instead of always saying 3 principles, is that I had wisdom within me. And wow, how cool is that? And so it's really understanding how we're wired, that no matter if we understand how these principles work, it's within us, just like gravity. We don't have to understand how gravity works, but it's working all the time. And so that was huge to know that no matter what's going on in the world, that we have this within us, and it's unscatable, it's unscratchable, no matter what's happened. And so I know this is just on the heels of the trauma conference. So no matter what's happened in your life, you have this, I kind of refer to it as a blue diamond. You have this blue diamond of innate health, wisdom, and resiliency. So I find that pretty amazing. And it's just part of the gifts that we're born with. And again, we didn't grow up with this understanding, our teachers didn't. And so that's possibly why you haven't heard much about it. But what I really like to share on that same thing is what we've understood is, well, you look at the self-help industry and it's just about a $12 billion industry. And it's all based on the fact of the premise that there's something wrong with us, we're broken, something's lacking, and we need to be fixed. And that's just the opposite of this understanding, is that we're whole, perfect, and complete. And what's missing is probably this understanding of how life works. So as I went on to deepen my understanding, I realized that I could kind of call the search off because I was looking out there. And so what was pretty amazing is I traveled from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan down to Lansing for a 9-month seminar. So once a month, I'd go down to learn more about my thinking. So a 4-hour drive, and had a lot of time to think about my thinking. But the key, what's different as to what Sid discovered, was the missing link from all other spiritual teachers and psychologists. And the missing link is the illusionary nature of thought. Let me say that again. What he discovered was the illusionary nature of thought. So everything that we experience is coming through our own filters. So it might look like it's the outside circumstances that are impacting us. But since we're feeling our thinking 24/7, and then we're seeing through our eyes out into the world and projecting our thinking. So a great example of that is separate realities. And how separate realities work is that we all don't have the same experience. So I had the experience of being 8 hours on the road a couple summers ago when the fires were bad, and I was making my way back from Corvallis, and there was only one road open from there to Bend. And once you know it, there was an accident on the road, which just stopped traffic for 8 hours, not moving for 8 hours. And I can imagine some separate realities that people are like, oh my gosh, we got an appointment, we got to get, to a certain place, and other people really being upset, and that feeling of being stuck and with no choice. That's part of their thinking. But what I saw was in the back of my back seat, I saw a book that I've been wanting to read, and I'm thinking, oh, I guess I got 8 hours. Well, of course, at the time, I didn't know it was going to be 8 hours, but that's how I chose to look at the situation, because, what other choices did I have? So, based on this understanding, so even, learning from my mentor, Dickon, who's got a book out called Coming Home, I highly recommend it. He was somebody trained as a psychologist. And before the principles, he was determined like no other to work on himself. And he would meditate up to 4 hours a day, I think, get up at 4 a.m. And he'd have a journal, a regular journal, he'd have a dream journal, and then he'd have a analysis dream journal. He'd have a journal for affirmations, and all kinds of these things. And once he came, familiar with the 3 principles, he too realize that he didn't have to look outside of himself, that we're all born with these spiritual gifts, innate health, wisdom, and resiliency. That wisdom comes through us, and changed his life. And so he's doing this 3 principles mentoring now. But that's what we kind of have grown up, I don't know, understanding from our culture, that we're to, fix ourselves somehow. Is it the latest and greatest, 5 steps to nirvana? Is it the new yoga pose? I mean, there's so much out there, but I don't see a lot coming from this perspective, this direction from looking within. So that's what's on offer, that we've been wired for this. And when I say wired, I say that we're really connected with this intelligence behind all life. And so it's not just our personal mind, although that's what it looks like, but we're connected to this amazing energy of the universe, that intelligence behind life that's beating our hearts right at this moment, that infinite intelligence that, we take up to, I guess, 25,000 breaths a day without our conscious, thinking. It's, life is living through us. It's through this infinite intelligence behind life. We don't have to think about digesting our food, it's done through us. And so that's what is, I think, pretty amazing. And when we get in a quiet mind, that's often when we have insights come to us. Have you ever had that experience, like on us? And these principles, by the way, have been working in your life all along. It's just having the understanding behind it and the language, but it's been working in your life whether you realize it or not. And so I'll just give you a simple example that somebody, that I'm sure you can all relate to, is that you're trying to figure out, thinking about somebody's name, or, that name of the book or whatever. And you're thinking, and you're not getting anywhere. And the minute you let go and you're doing the dishes or taking a shower, what happens? Boom, that answer comes to you. And so that's just a small example, but I really do believe that answers come to us once we let go of trying to make something happen. I was always one thinking that we had to try to make something happen. You got to have those goals. And when you think about planning and goals, it's based on the past. There's not a lot of room for exploring, the mystery, the unknown. And that's where, a lot of our answers come from. So I'm sure the old understanding is knowing that our bodies heal, right? And something that you can all relate to, right? You've cut your finger, and in a very short amount of time, I kind of giggle at myself because I don't have any Band-Aids or really any medical supplies, but find a Kleenex to kind of stop the blood. And once that happens, then nature sends its own natural Band-Aid, so it scars over. And in a very short amount of time, a couple of days later, you forget all about it, oh yeah, disappeared. That's the intelligence behind life that we have on offer. So this isn't anything for you to get. There's no technique. There's no, 5 steps to getting this. And again, it's coming from just understanding how we've been wired all along. And so that's the beauty of it, is that, you don't have to really work on anything. You just have to understand where your thinking is coming from, and noticing when you're in a low mood, because when you're in a low mood, you don't want to trust your thinking, So back to if what's on offer, that we have this amazing ability to heal our bodies, wouldn't it make sense that we have this amazing ability also to heal our psychology or our well-being. And you're in luck because I'm going to share with you, I think, let me see, of our mud mind. So I want to show with, this is another metaphor, but this is how we're wired for our well-being. Okay, now just remember again, we're born with an innate health and wisdom and resiliency. It's our default setting. So nothing for you to do. All right. So here is my mud mind jar. And what you're seeing is just clear water. And that's what happens when we quiet our mind and notice that we're too sped up. So here's the example of what happens. And we all get into mud mind trying to figure something out, or, if I only knew enough, I would be able to do X, Y, Z, or we get into mud mind a lot of times based on the past or on the future. So the past would be based on some experience. It could be on, judging yourself, shoulda, woulda, coulda. We do that a lot in the thinking that takes us in the past. And then in the future, we have this desire of needing to know, and we make it up. Oftentimes we make it up because it's just who we are. We're thinking, if somebody hasn't returned our text message over time, we make it up. And this is a true story for me, making it up that the person's really not interested in our friendship. And so, was that true? I just made it up until, it was a year or so later that I reconnected, shared that thinking. And she said, oh no, that wasn't it at all. I probably wasn't checking my messages. I tend to, not do texting. And so here it is. I made it up that she was no longer interested in my friendship. And that's what we do, because for whatever reason, we need to know. Instead of just embracing the mystery, being okay with not knowing, and realizing when it's time to know that we will know. So back to our psychological well-being, if I just leave that thinking alone, and what starts to happen is our thinking slows down, what I like to say, more of a quiet mind. And so as that happens, you'll see that the mud mind tends to settle, and we'll have more and more clarity. And so when we have the clarity, that's when we're really in touch with our well-being. And that's where inspiration comes from. That's where focus, good ideas, and wisdom are able to come to us, because we're more, I would say, open and not caught up in our thinking. So what happens is oftentimes we get in our way. And that's what I found prior to the principles, and even now, it's just like, when I get caught up in my thinking, it's I'm noticing it, and then I realize, oh, I need to just quiet down and leave space for wisdom to come in. And so what I want to say is, there's nothing that you really need to do other than understanding how our mental well-being works. And more, as I will share with you, you're starting to see some clarity. Now, this wasn't any kind of technique or anything other than just realizing I got caught up, settle my thinking by just maybe holding something a little lighter. I know some people have trouble thinking about letting go of your thinking, but if you could consider whatever is maybe what you're struggling with is if you can hold it lighter, that would be a way to quieting down. And then that's where our well-being is. So prior to the understanding, I don't know about you on any kind of decision making, but I would put a line down the middle of the page with pluses and minuses as to trying to figure out what my next step would be, or maybe looking, outside of myself and asking opinions from other people. And now, since the principles, I realize that when I need to know, I will know. And it's not like I can push the river to make something happen. So it's like a knowing, like we have our own inner GPS system. How cool is that? That is guiding us. And so I have told a friend that I had stopped probably making decisions like I used to, because now I really am trusting my wisdom. And I know that whatever I'm seeking will come to me. And maybe not in the timeline that I want it to happen, but I trust that I will be knowing what I need to know. So it's really opportunity to sometimes fall out of our thinking. Like, you recognize the place of knowing, and that's what I'm pointing to. Instead of trying, it's almost like the more you try, the further away you get. And that's the irony, isn't it? Kind of like the chasing the butterfly, or trying to chase happiness, and realizing, oh, it's from within. There's nothing. But our culture says, oh, it's the new relationship, it's the new job, it's the new car, it's the new house, right? So what I'm saying is that we've been conditioned a long time for thinking that the external environment is impacting us. It reminds me of a saying that, somebody that's been chasing money all their life, and once they achieve whatever amount that they've been seeking, find that they're very unhappy, because they thought that if they chased the dollar, then they would be happy. And again, looking outside of themselves for what's within. So what's pretty amazing, I want to share a video or two about how we're wired, and it has to do with how a great metaphor is how the wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone to, I guess I'm not so sure they could see ahead of time how the ripple effect was going to happen. But what happened is that this Yellowstone came back to balance and harmony by reintroducing the wolves back into their natural habitat. And it was just, the wolves being their authentic wolves, and what happened was pretty amazing. So I want to show a short video. It's about 4 minutes. But prior to that, I just want you to see the intelligence behind all life in this 4-minute video. And it's not something unique to nature. It's within us. And that's part of the intelligence behind life, that our natural reset point is balance and harmony. And the only thing that gets in our way oftentimes is our thinking. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to see how about sharing my screen. Okay, and let me go here. All right, let's see how this works. I want to do another one. Let's see. Okay, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it a bigger screen, but you'll get the point. Here we go.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately, those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed in it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Yeah, so there's the intelligence behind life. And man did not have to interfere, right, to have all that happen. And what amazing ripple effect that just, reintroducing wolves to their natural habitat just created more balance to, Yellowstone. And so it's such a metaphor, this rewilding, because I think if we rewild ourselves back to our true nature, our authentic selves, and be who we really are without getting caught up into some personal thinking that says, who are you to be that? Who are you to be this light? That we have this innate gift within us. And I'm just thinking, what if we had the courage to be truly who we are, to shine our light fully, full on, what kind of ripple effect would that have in our own life, our community, our family, our world? Because I truly, truly believe what's on offer is that we are part of this divine infinite intelligence to share our gifts. And what gets in the way? Yep, you guessed it. It's our thinking. And so how this has played out in my life is that I had, well, to back it up, I made a major change with my marriage, and thought, I tried everything I could and just felt so stuck. And then realized my stuckness was just something I was making up, that I was not really stuck. I looked around, stuck. Are my feet in concrete? Or what does stuck really look like? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? And once I realized that thought just is energy, you can't even see it, but it looks so real. And that's what I'm saying is the illusionary nature of thought is that it looks so real. And one of the huge things that I would say as an insight is that I don't have to believe everything I think. And so that was huge. And so that just, I guess you would say, opened the door for me to create the life that I had already, I've always dreamed of and didn't think it was possible. And so it allowed me to explore adventures. One was taking my joyride, which is just about 10 years ago, and really feeling kind of a pull to maybe think about that again. But I took a year, I cashed in one of my retirement things, and I bought a road truck van and proceeded to get out of Michigan for the winter with the idea to, head out to the West Coast without a plan. So prior to this understanding, I'd still be saying, well, what if this happens? And I'm not sure about, this whole RV life and, all those what ifs, and that get in our way. I'd have to say, yeah, I had some strategy as to where I wanted to go, but that was a major undertaking, and I would not have been able to do that had I not trust my inner wisdom. So prior to that, I did this vision quest on 10 days in Southern Colorado with 13 people I didn't know, and 5 days doing a solo with nothing but a tarp and some water. And I let go of a lot then, but realizing that, that you can have the life that you've always dreamed of. And the only thing that really gets in the way again is thinking that you can't, or some, our ego wants to keep us in the same place. So another aha or insight I had was that seeing that it's an inside out reality versus an outside in. And so you've probably heard the saying, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And so again, it points to that we're creating the experience. We're feeling our thinking 24/7 through our own filters. And a great example of that, back to, I guess, the fires, is that, we've seen that on the news, and they would interview 4 different families. And, they've all lost everything, and one family is totally distraught. They have no idea how they're going to move forward, and just, rightly so, really traumatized by it. And then they'll show another family that says, oh, we found our dog, we got each other, we're going to rebuild, and we're going to be okay. So same reality, but seeing it differently. And so it's just interesting, right, to realize that we are really creating our own reality. So with that, I'm going to share another 3-minute video on that topic. And I think I can enlarge the screen this time. Okay, let's see. We don't want that. One solution. No. Okay, that's a bookmark. Okay, let's try it again. One solution, here we go.
Most of us are so busy looking at what's happening around us, our life, our relationships, our work, social media, the state of the world, that we forget to look at what's going on inside us. We think we're looking at the world, but we're not. We're looking at our thinking about it. Because of the amazing special effects department inside our mind, we believe we're seeing what's out there. Nope. Never. Impossible. Whether you're trying to shoot a basketball, manage a busy restaurant on a Friday night, connect with a person on a first date, cure cancer, or come up with the solutions to the climate crisis, your mind is either helping you or hurting you. We all know it. We can feel it. Sometimes we're on fire, in the flow, loving life. But sometimes we're our worst enemy, swimming upstream, making things harder for ourselves and everyone around us. Why is that? What explains the variations of the mind and why it has such a massive influence on what we see and what we're capable of? Moment to moment, every second of our lives, our perception of reality is being created from the inside. That perception is then projected out onto the world. So when we're looking at our partner, coworkers, kids, communities, political leaders, social issues, other cultures, the world, you get the point. We're not really seeing them. We're seeing what we think projected onto them. The mind creates our version of reality for better or worse. It is the gateway and source of all of our capabilities, our behaviors, our potential to solve problems and create new things, from the micro level to the macro. It explains what we see when we look in the mirror, how we interact with our families, the kinds of businesses we create, and the very systems we design to organize society and the world at large. If we ignore, minimize, or misunderstand the mind, we'll forever be victims of a random, seemingly stressful outside world. It will feel like life is happening to us, bullying us, beating us down, confusing us. Understand the mind, and we begin to realize that life is coming from us. We can begin to have clarity, resilience, and influence over our perceptions, world around us in ways that we never thought possible. We also realize that we are all in the same boat. We all think, we all feel, and we all make up stories in our heads and think that we're right. The good news is that while the mind is at the source of the problems we face as humans, it is also the source of its solutions. Because when we understand our internal world, we do not only change ourselves, we change our communities, our organizations, our systems. When our minds change, we can change the world.
Okay, so that's a little bit about seeing that we're creating our reality from the inside out. And what I want to emphasize, I guess, is that realizing that we're not at the effect, that we are, what's on offer is surrendering to kind of having life live through us. And before the principles, I always thought, well, we got to make it happen. We got to try, and then getting exhausted and disappointed in feeling all that energy and effort and not having it work out according to whatever plan I thought I needed to have. And so now there's a feeling of relaxing and understanding that I and you and all of us, once you understand this a little bit more, we have this infinite intelligence working behind all life. I like to say the universe has our back, and I really, really believe that's true. The other thing I want to make sure you hear, because it said change your mind, but this isn't about changing your thinking so much. It's realizing that we have this creative energy called thought, and not so much what we think, but realizing what's on offer, that we have this connection to something far greater than just our personal mind. So we're not doing this life alone. The illusions are many. One of them is thinking that we're separate, but we're very much connected. And yeah, so what I have found, that it's just less struggle in my life, more enjoyment, a lot more joy, less stress, more joy. Yeah, and realizing that I can relax and I don't really need to work on myself, which really created an opening, if you will, to enjoy life a lot more. So I just glanced at my time, and it looks like we might have time for a question or two. And so I'm not sure, Maria or Cheryl, if you open that up or how that works. But I think if you do have a question, right, you can just raise your hand or.
Yeah. Thank you, Joy, for that was a lot of information, but really good information. So I'm processing that and the videos and stuff too. Is there any other, let's see, is there any questions at the moment?
Well, doesn't appear, but we can hold off. Karen has a question.
Hey, go for it. Oh, you're mute.
You got to unmute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this thing about, you don't make decisions. You just know that you trust that the information will come. But it doesn't always come in the time that you think it will come. So is it just another matter of trust as to, some things in life, there are deadlines. So you just trust that information will be given to you in the appropriate time before the deadline is up.
I think that maybe you might have some deadlines coming up, Karen. I think that, there's what I'm pointing to, there's a sense of knowing, that knowing when you see that beautiful sunset and, that baby, there's just something that comes. And I realize that sometimes you just have to, go with, in the moment, what feels right. But then again, maybe there's no right or wrong as far as a decision, but just trusting that when you do need to know, you'll be knowing what you need to know in the time that you need to know it. Yeah, I guess it is about trusting. Definitely.
Okay. Okay, that's a toughie.
So just hold that a little lighter and realize that, if the divine intelligence behind life is how we got here to begin with, that's something that you might be struggling with as far as a decision is small potatoes. If you're trying to figure something out, then you're really stuck in your intellectual and you're trying to figure it out, where I'm saying it'll just show up when you let go. It's the irony, isn't it? So anyway, thank you for your question. And I want to just share, if you heard something that's intriguing or you're curious or you'd like to know more, I would love to have a conversation with you. And so please reach out either to my website, joyofwellbeing.org, or send me an email at joy@joyofwellbeing.org. Would love to hear from you. Thinking about doing a book group on one of the newer books in this topic is Don't Believe Everything You Think. So with that, I just thank you for the opportunity, for letting me share. I'm hoping that you gained something, and it's been a pleasure. That's been my story. And so thanks for listening.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for that great presentation. I think it's something that everybody needs to hear.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you. And I think it's partly like to your question, Karen, and everything. I think we think in our heads too much, and that, like you were saying, Joy, the outer, like we're always supposed to come up with the answer, and be busy. So like, I know for myself, taking time and like really listening to myself and my intuition has been a big help, and working on that inner work. So but it's not easy, because like you said, we're kind of programmed, or we're conditioned that we've always got to find on the outside. So it's just a kind of coming back and looking at things for yourself. So
yeah, and really remembering how we've been divinely engineered. This is no accident, right?
right.
And I just have to share that my mud mine has cleared. So great example.
Nice.
Of our well-being. And again, that's where our ideas and focus and clarity and wisdom. And if you're really caught up in your thinking, there's no space for wisdom to come through.
Yeah. No, that was a very good visual. So thank you for that. I've never thought about the mud mine. So that's a great.
I know. I just think if everybody made their own mud mine, it's a good reminder, right? When, we're getting caught up. Well, maybe we need to just slow it down here.
That is. So we want to thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your story, and bringing this remembrance to us, because it is. So
yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.